All right, section 4, individual movements. So this is going to be a little bit harder to articulate without actually having you guys here in the room to examine how this is done and to kind of replicate it for yourself. We touched briefly on this at the very end, although we didn't call it this. Angles and how we use them effectively. So all warfare is a game of angles. It's a game of angles on a micro scale, that's you versus however many, and it's a game of angles on a macro scale, which is your team versus their team. Your team could be the military, their team could be somebody else's military, you get the idea. All warfare is a game of angles. So what I mean by that is what we're really trying to do in a gunfight is deny our adversaries the chance to injure us. And the way that we do that is by creating angles for ourselves and taking them away from other people. So if we treat this barricade as another, again, it's a pillar. Let's imagine for a moment that it's not round. What you'll typically see people do, even well-trained people, will typically, if I'm fighting you, that is you on the other side of the camera, what you'll typically see them do is step way out of cover to start taking those shots. The reality is, I don't need to come out here to take that shot. I'm exposing most of my vital organs to you that I'm fighting, and whomever else may be out here. Maybe they've got friends that I haven't seen yet, or maybe they are, and for whatever reason, I've still decided to engage you here first. So instead of stepping way out here to press those shots off, I can create a much narrower angle for myself by coming out only as far as I have to take the shots that I need. So that's an example of me creating an angle for myself. I wanted to touch on body mechanics and the efficiency of movement. That's not really something that I think is conducive to a video conference like this. So keep that in mind, body mechanics and biomechanical efficiency. You can look up any number of videos on those subjects, and there's some pretty good stuff out there. But for right now, I'm going to kind of breeze over that. So, when to move. So, a lot of times I've seen people decide to move when they didn't really need to. They, especially when you're under a lot of stress in the heat of the moment, you can ramp up this internal cadence that is very hard to contain. So you can get really amped up inside and really want to get very aggressive, especially if you either are or perceive that you are on the winning end of a fight. So a lot of times people will choose to move when they don't really need to. When maintaining the position that they were already in would incur for them a much greater advantage. So they might try to move if they see somebody sort of break cover and try to flee. They might decide to get really aggressive and go after them, but the reality is now they've decided to leave either cover or concealment, whichever it is. They've decided to leave that, and now they're a much bigger target. They're a much more perceived threat for anyone else who may not have broken and ran. And they're also much less likely to hit what they're shooting at now that they're moving, if they decide to shoot while they move. So that's just one example. I'm trying to keep this stuff fairly quick. That's just one example of people choosing to move when they didn't really need to. So in general, if you don't have to move, it's a pretty good idea to stay stationary. It's easier to communicate with your team. It's easier for them to give you information, for you to give them information. If something does happen, one of your teammates goes down, it's easier for you to get to them. If you go down, it's easier for them to get to you. So put that in your head. Don't think that because you have momentum, that automatically means that you have to move. Often it is a good idea, but there is no one-size-fits-all solution for any of this stuff. So why to move. We've touched on a lot of reasons not to move. Why to move? What is happening within the battle space? If you're winning a fight and the enemy is giving you ground, it's appropriate to move if doing so does not further endanger you or anyone else, or at least it does not increase the danger to you or to anyone else. So we would move in order to continue the fight only if we really needed to. And especially for what it is we're training for, they're probably going to want us to behave in a very, very defensive manner. So they're probably not going to want us to get aggressive and continue to take the fight to the bad guys. If staying put means that we protect the assets that they've tasked us with protecting, then that's what we need to do in Section 4.